If Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had not come, then what would have happened? How could we have maintained our life? How could we have remained within the body? Who but he is capable of describing to the world, making it known within this world, the glories of Srimati Radharani, which are the ultimate limit of Prem Ras, which is better left in Bengali or Sanskrit than try to translate it. The topmost perfection, or the highest level of expertise, is to enter within the beautiful groves of Vrindavan and the bhava bhakti, the emotional, devotional service of the young girls of Vrindavan. Who but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has the power, or who can attain to that without his mercy? So sing again and again the glories of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, about his qualities, making the mind simple, not overly complex. Sharlata hi Vaishnavata. Simplicity is Vaishnavism. Sharala Karyaman. Within this ocean of birth and death, who is there but he? Who is there but he as mercy? Who is there? I don't find anyone as merciful as he. So Basu Ghosh says that the name of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gaura Nam, did not come to my throat. So how am I maintaining my life without chanting the names of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? It seems to me, he says, that Lord Brahma has made my heart out of stone. How has he made my heart out of stone? So that's a rough translation. You had many questions, among which I remember the first one. Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. Among these three, what is meant by Sadhu? We are to receive transcendental knowledge from Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. The center is Shastra. That is explained to us by Guru, who understands Shastra. But Guru does not do so independently. He also does according to the explanations of the previous acharyas. So the principal meaning of Sadhu in the three-term usage, Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, is previous acharyas. Guru explains according to the previous acharyas what is in Shastra. Sometimes it's said that this means we can take advice from all different devotees present here, and it could be construed like that, but as we are to receive authorized knowledge from Shastra through Guru Parampara, then this should be the principal meaning here. Sadhu means previous acharyas. Guru doesn't take Shastra and just speak on it according to his own imagination, but according to the guidelines given by previous acharyas. So if there's no other questions, I can go on with ones which are in store here. You had so many questions? You want to print them out and give them to me?
I can bring tomorrow some.
Yeah, okay. So here's a question I got by email from someone. Our Vaishnav calendar in Poland is a little bit overwhelmed. That's not very good English, is it? A little bit overwhelmed. With festivals like Mahashivratri or Shankaracharya Jayanti. I must say I never heard of Shankaracharya Jayanti before. And as Jayanti is anyway only referring to the appearance of Krishna and not even to Nrsimha or Balaram, and definitely not to Gandhi or Buddha or Ambedkar Jayanti, then it's a misuse of the term. And actually I was quite bewildered when I recently saw Mahashivratri being celebrated in our Gauna Nitai Mandir with a picture of Lord Shiva and Shiva Lingam on the altar and the fire sacrifice going on with the chanting of some mantra to Lord Shiva. So this made me think of which of those festivals are really ours and which are not. So which festivals should we follow? Well, actually every day in Krishna consciousness is a festival. It's supposed to be. Festival means singing, dancing, distribution of food, being happy. And Krishna consciousness is a festival every day. Especially here in Mayapur. It's not only at the festival time, but at any time of the year, there'll be at least 300 devotees in Mangalarti. And what to speak of people coming from outside, visitors. So many people coming together. Bahubhaya Militva Yad Kirtanam Sankirtanam. Many coming together, that's Sankirtan festival. Apart from this, there are particular festivals which are for celebrating the appearance and disappearance of, appearance of the Lord and appearance and disappearance of great devotees, and then festivals celebrating certain leelas. We have Govardhan Puja especially, Julan Yatra. So these are connected, these festivals are connected with particular celebrations. And by observing them, our remembrance of that personality and our connection with that personality, that particular personality, and our remembrance of that Leela, we can partake in the Govardhan Puja by making the hill of Govardhan and worshipping. So in this way we can enter into the festival atmosphere of the spiritual world by remembering particular festivals and partaking in them at particular times. One thing is though that if there are so many festivals, then we may lose the specialty of it. In Sri Rangam, there are more than 200 festivals celebrated every year. So many of them you go to and it's only one or two pujaris who are celebrating. It loses its significance. Previously maybe others would have participated, but what it means if you have so many festivals is that actually on certain days they're doing special pujas or observances. If everyone doesn't partake, then it's not really a festival, is it? Now, there are many festivals in the Hindu calendar, such as Shankaracharya Jayanti, not in the Hindu calendars that I've seen, but maybe that was picked up from South India. Shivratri is celebrated throughout India. Generally not celebrated by Vaishnavas. It may be. In Hari Bhakti Vilas it's stated that Vaishnavas may observe it, but I've not seen actually, except in ISKCON, any Vaishnavas observing it. The way we would observe it would be different to the way the Shaivites or general Hindus would observe it also. So which to celebrate? Better to celebrate the standard festivals as celebrated in our sampradaya, as given by our acharyas, particularly Srila Prabhupada. There's no harm to celebrate certain other festivals. There may be some harm in celebrating certain festivals, just like here it's mentioned. My wife is very enchanted with this festival called Karva Chauth. Karva Chauth. What's that? Something to do with, they do for protection, for the protection of their husband. And it's a festival for Devi, is it? For Durga. For Ganesh also. So we don't celebrate such things. You can pray for the protection of your husband, but pray to Krishna. Don't get involved with demigod worship. The question is, as Grihastas we follow some of the festivals at home. Is it okay if on festivals like Ram Navami we put a certain picture of the Lord on the altar and decorate it with garlands and flowers? Yes, that's very nice to do at home. And we can offer this incarnation Bhog and later Arati. Well, Ram Navami is a celebration that Ram Navami is a celebration that Srila Prabhupada instituted as a major festival in ISKCON. So not just at home, but in our temples throughout the world, we celebrate that. Generally, we celebrate festivals by like that, more kirtan, discussion of the particular pastime. We can sing certain kirtans which are connected with that. If we know particular bhog offerings which are specific to that festival, we can offer also. Abhishek maybe, yeah, for those deities. Kirtan is main. How to observe Julan Yatra. I know about the swinging of the picture of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. Was there anything extra we could do? I'm not aware of anything extra. The swinging is there. Swinging and kirtan. In Karva Chauth, is there any similar Vaishnava festival that enhances the wife's devotion? I'm not aware within Gauriya Vaishnavism of such observances for increasing the wife's devotion to the husband. We concentrate on increasing in devotion to Krishna and our acharyas, and that wife's devotion to her husband, that is there, that's part of life, but we don't emphasize special observances for this. Then there's a whole long list. Akshaya Tritiya. What are we supposed to do on these days? Akshaya Tritiya, chant Hare Krishna. Whatever you do on this day is supposed to go on forever. So chant Hare Krishna. It's the most important thing you should do. Chandan Yatra, that's put sandalwood paste, place sandalwood paste on the deities. Shalagram Tulsi, Jal Dan, then drip water, put a pot and drip water on Shalagram and Tulsi, you can do. Hanuman Jayanti, there's no such thing as Hanuman Jayanti. That's Jayanti is for Krishna, so forget that one. The appearance day of Hanuman, we don't do any. That's observed by karmis who think that Hanuman, they worship him for sankata mochana, get rid of all their obstacles for sense enjoyment. So we're not much interested in it. Balaram Rasiyatra, if you like, you can read about that from Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishna Vasanta Ras, I'm not aware of any special observance. It means Krishna's dancing with the gopis in springtime. Dol Yatra is more or less the same as Julan Yatra. Dol is the same meaning as Julan. Swing, but we celebrate Gaur Purnima on that day. Janu Saptami, what's done on that day? It's going to the Ganga, bathing in the Ganga, something, I don't know. Krishna Fool Dole, that's making a swing for Krishna decorated with many flowers. Salil Vihar, That may not, this is from Poland, this may not apply in Poland, but during this time of the year it's extremely hot, so everything's rose water and everything's water everywhere. The deities are sprayed with water and the whole room is filled up with water up to the knees and it's nice and cool. Radha Raman Dev Jayanti. Well, this would be celebrated especially by the followers of Radha Raman. It's just like in any temple, the day the deities are installed is celebrated as in that temple. So those who are initiated in that sampradaya, they may follow. Or devotees in Vrindavan may go. Ganga Puja, if you're by the Ganga, you can go and do Ganga Puja. Panihati Chirdoi Utsav, if you're in Panihati, you can do. Elsewhere, if you want, you can do. You can read the pastime and distribute similar prasadam. Snan Yatras, particularly for Jagannath, as is Gundicha Marjan, and Rath Yatras. Hera Panchami, again you can read from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Nandotsav is the day after Janmashtami. That's again by us, for us, superseded by Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja. Ganesh Chaturthi we don't follow. Lalita Shasti. Well, if there's deity of Lalita, you can do a special worship, something like that. Vishwarup Mahotsav, you can read. There's not much about Vishwarup, the brother of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepting sannyas. Ananta Chadurdashi Vrata, I'm not sure what the Vrata is, but it's the same day as the disappearance of Haridas Thakur. So if you like, you can read from Chaitanya Charitamrita about that. Akash Deep, is that the Kartik Deep lighting the lamps? Deepavali? I don't know. Anyone know? I don't know. So. Shastra Puja, that you can do every day by going out and distributing Prabhupada's books. Navaratri is worship of Durga, we don't do. Krishna Sharadiya Rasiyatra, well, you can cook a pot of sweet rice and leave it out in the moonlight and distribute it the next morning. That's supposed to be when Krishna and the gopis get hungry in the middle of Ras Leela, they can take some sweet rice and it tastes very sweet the next morning. Lakshmi Puja, that we're doing every day by worshipping Radha and Krishna. Niyam Seva particularly refers to that. Niyam Seva, that's any niyam, any specific observance which we take, but that specifically refers to in Kartik. So if you want to observe something in Kartik, Radha Kund Prakart, you can go, you can bathe in Radha Kund, which Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur told that not physically to do, but as Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is Radha Kund, you can bathe in that. So you can read Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu on that day. Snan Dan, I don't know what that is. Anyone know? Deepavali, we already said. Bali Daityaraj Puja. Gopashtami, that's the day when Krishna was first given charge of cows instead of just little calves. So Prabhupada said on that day, Srimati Radharani's feet can be seen in the temple. Jagadatri Puja. Jagadatri refers again to Durga, so we don't do that. How this got in our Vaishnava canon, I don't know. Bhishma Panchak, devotees in Mayapur know all about that. You're supposed to get the same by following for 5 days some special vow in which you don't take grains and only take fruits and a few things, and you get the value of observing all Chaturmas. Well, maybe from the Karma Kanda point of view, you get all the value of that. I don't know. If you want, you can do. Krishna Rasa Yatra, again you can read about that. Rasa Leela. Tulsi Shalagram Vivaha is, interestingly, that's, at least in modern times, is mostly, marriage of Tulsi and Shalagram is mostly followed by the Smartas in South India, not by the Vaishnavas. But I was told one smarter couple from South India, they saw Prabhupada, they went to have Prabhupada's darshan in Los Angeles, and they'd stopped, they were doing it was Rukmini Kalyanam, which again they do, the marriage of Rukmini with Krishna, which again mostly smarters do. And without saying anything, they'd stopped doing that, and Prabhupada told them, without them mentioning it at all, that you should do it. So, maybe it's good for them. Katyayani Vrata, that's for the young unmarried gopis. So if you like, you can read that. Oran Shasti, that's specifically for the worship of Jagannath, but we don't, so far that hasn't been introduced in our centers. This kind of thing you can do if you're living in India, maybe a little difficult if you're in Poland. That means to offer, well, one of the observances is offering unstarched cloth. So if you like, you can read about, there's one Leela took place that's mentioned briefly in Chaitanya Charitamrita and in length in Chaitanya Bhagavat, how Pundarik Vidyanidhi got beaten up by Jagannath and Balaram, actually. Jagadish Pandit Avyabhav, there are so many Avyabhavs, the appearance of different devotees. Krishna Pusha Abhishek, this is sometimes misunderstood to be Pushpa Abhishek, and in some of our temples they Abhishek the deities with flowers. Although Pusha actually refers to a particular titi, so it means on that particular day Krishna is bathed. Ganga Sagar Mela, if you want, you can go to Ganga Sagar on that day. In Poland there's no Ganga Sagar, so this okay. Vasant Panchami, that's more or less a Karmi festival. But on that same day, it's also Saraswati Puja, so we can worship Bhaktisiddhanta, or at least remember him. Or Pundarik Vidyanidhi Avyabhav, and also Vishnu Priya Devi's Avyabhav. Varalakshmi Vrata, I don't know, sounds like another. You know about that one? Sounds like another Karmi festival. Saraswati Puja. Well, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, the Karmis, they worship Dushta Saraswati on this day, the Saraswati who gives Aparavidya, a knowledge of this material world, whereas those who are to get knowledge of the spiritual world, Paravidya, they worship Shuddha Saraswati on the appearance day of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Bhishmashtami, that's the disappearance of Bhishma Dev. This is celebrated, I only heard of this being celebrated in Andhra Pradesh. Anyone here from Andhra Pradesh? No. Anyone else know of any place else where it's observed in India? Do you know, in Hyderabad they observe? Not much. When I was in Kakinada many years ago, not in Vishakhapatnam? No, in Kakinada, maybe just in Kakinada, I don't know. But it seemed to be a big thing there, which isn't far from Vishakhapatnam. So if you like, you can read from Bhagavatam. It's very nice prayers of Bhishma Dev. Shivratri, already discussed. Alright, there's a brief overview. Each festival, a lot more could be said. Any more questions? Oh, now I need glasses. I've read in Gaur Govinda Maharaj's book that one time there was a scheme in Dwarka to get Krishna back to Vrindavan. There was a scheme to stop him going back to Vrindavan. They made an imitation Vrindavan to stop Krishna, or to make him, to ask, to give him comfort because he was feeling distress from separation from Vrindavan. First Balaram went in a chariot, then Subhadra, then finally Krishna followed in his own chariot. when he reached Vrindavan and saw Radha, pangs of separation, Mahabhav, he also became overwhelmed in ecstasy. His eyes bulged and his limbs went inside his body. He lay there on the ground, motionless, stunned. That form is the form of Lord Jagannath. So Krishna in fact did return to Vrindavan. I never heard of this incident anywhere else. Is it true? What do you mean by true? What is the nature of reality? That's another question. Is it true? As I've heard from our acharyas, it is true. As is described in Brihad Bhagavatamrita of Sanatana Goswami. Although he doesn't say that's the form of Jagannath. And Krishna, he returned to Vrindavan. Yes. And Gaur Govinda Maharaj also returned to Vrindavan telling this pastime. So be careful. Don't tell this pastime too often. You might return to Vrindavan very quickly if you have that ecstasy. Then, any other questions? Oh. How to increase firm faith towards spiritual master? Well, if it's firm, I guess it could get firmer. What does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevya upidekshanti te jnanam jnananas tattvadarshinaha. This process, by following this, one upadekshanti, one receives initiation. So diksha, one similar term is upanayanam, coming close, coming within the purview. So faith, that will be natural if one is sincere in Krishna consciousness. Then by coming close to the spiritual master, that means by hearing and atmasat, this Bhaktivinoda Thakur prays to become atmasat, that means inseparable, in consciousness inseparable, an intrinsic part. So then naturally, if the guru is bona fide and the disciple is sincere, then by hearing and following the instructions, then realization will come, and then automatically the faith increases when the result is there. It's not an extraneous process. It's natural. There may be many tests of faith. Certainly there will be. By seeing the behavior and hearing and seeing that the behavior and the practice and the precept are the same, then one's faith will increase. By seeing that in practice and precept, the spiritual master has no other aim than to be Krishna conscious and share Krishna consciousness, then one's faith increases. There may be incidences where one's faith is tested by unusual behavior of the spiritual master. That may also be. There's one incident described which I often remember when I'm thinking of this, of Prabhupada spending quite some time teasing a Pekingese dog who was in the next apartment on the veranda. And Prabhupada teased and he went on barking and barking and barking, and Prabhupada went on teasing and teasing and teasing. So you may think, well, what's that got to do with Krishna? I can think lucky dog. to get so much attention from Prabhupada. So that may seem unusual, but then you have to see what is the even if there may be sometimes some lapse, not lapse, that's a wrong word, sorry, or some apparent lapse from the standard of what we would expect to be Krishna consciousness, then that he's always engaged in that way. That's his general behavior. So any apparent deviation from that is to be understood as some, not deviation on his part, but some unusual expression of his Krishna consciousness. Of course, if he spends 3 hours every day playing with Pekingese dogs, then you might start to wonder what's going on. Then there will be some grounds for doubt. And if there's a doubt, then you can ask, why are you doing like this? And he might explain. I can't imagine how that would be explained, but there may be. Jodhiyama Nityananda Shuravari Jai Tatapi O Shay More Nityananda Rai. Even if Lord Nityananda he goes into a wine shop, still I respect him as my worshipable Nityananda. Understanding him, he's not going there to drink wine, he has some purpose in doing so. To deliver the wine drinkers. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also, he wanted to associate with the drunkards. When they saw his kirtan, they were all chanting Hare Krishna. He was appreciating. But then his devotees restrained him. That people may misunderstand. Then, any other question? Oh. ये सेमिनार अंग्रेजी में चल रहा है और दूसरी बात है I can't read it anyway. Okay.
In the day Dwadashi, why we are not taking Tulsi Patra? What is the reason?
On Dwadashi, why do we not cut Tulsi Patra? It's forbidden in Shastra. Well, I don't know, but I can suggest that there are many such restrictions in Shastra according to Titi. Don't shave on this day, or do shave on this day. On this Titi is good for procreation. This Titi is not, there are so many. So it's all to do with the various subtle energies. In the Titis, the different subtle energies of the universe are working in different ways. That's why we have each day. There's the solar day and the lunar day. So in the solar day we know that each day has its particular influence. The sun, the moon, Mangal, Bud and all these. So presumably cutting Tulsi on that day is very harmful to Tulsi. Presumably that is the reason why. In Shastra there are many such directions according to time. According to time means on this day, at this time of day what we should do. Then according to season, many different things for health. Now when the Chaitra month begins, and don't eat the date gur anymore, common knowledge, because it's too hot. The heat the outside temperature has increased, it's increased the inside temperature. So there are many such directions. Many of them they're practical. practical things like this. Just like in the winter you should eat certain food, is it? In the winter in North India it's very cold, and in the summer it's very hot. So in the winter there's certain kind of food for the winter, certain kind of food for the summer. How we also for deities, which are hot in the winter and those which are cooling in the summer. So these are all fine points to be understood.
Another question.
Yeah.
Srimati Radharani, what is the birth story?
What is what?
श्रीमती राधा रानी का जन्म का क्या इतिहास है?
Kya?
श्रीमती राधा रानी
The history. What do you mean the history?
I heard some place that Vishnu Bhanudev get Srimati Radha Rani in the flower from the Lalita Sakhi, and Radha Rani is taking birth like that. What is the exact?
He found her. Yeah, that's stated somewhere. Elsewhere it's stated in that there was some cursing and counter cursing. It's also stated that she was born blind. And then when Krishna came, she opened her eyes. So first she saw Krishna. There are different things said in different places. It's like that she was found by Vrishabhanu Raja. Like that. Some great persons, like Sita Devi, her name, I mean, she came from the earth.
And third question. In ISKCON there is a dress for the devotees, for the brahmacharis saffron, the growers for the white. For the Matajis, what is the dress?
Sari?
But color, I think.
Color, any color.
What is white? Like there is a colorful choice. Why the color is choice? Color varieties, colors.
Women are followers of their husband. So traditionally they dress for pleasing their husband, and traditionally when they went outside they would wear white sari with border if they went outside, and colorful saris at home, at festivals, coming to the temple for the pleasure of the Lord, like that. How many more philosophical questions? What is the relevance of parikrama, of deities and elevated Vaishnavas? Where can we find Shastric references? There are so many descriptions in Shastra. We'll find in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll find, what was that, Dhruv Maharaj? Was it Kuver he did parikrama of? So there are many. There's a story of, presumably Puranic story, of the quarrel between the two brothers, Ganesh and Kartikeya. And each was saying, I'm better than you, as brothers are wont to do. So they made a pact that whoever can go around the universe quickest, they'll be considered the best. So you've got Kartikeya, who's the general of the demigods, and you've got Ganesh, who's famous for eating ladus and looks rather overweight. So Kartikeya thought, I'll easily win this one, and he set off, and Ganesh was just sitting there. Then he just did parikrama of his parents, Shiva and Parvati, and said, that's it, now I did it. And they accepted that. So Kartikeya came back a few minutes later and said, Ganesh, well, I beat you to it. So there are many examples in Shastra. That elevated persons, one goes around them, offering respect, keeping the right shoulder to them. Exactly why, what is the significance? I don't know. Maybe I'll check it out and let you know. If you give me an address, I'll try and find that. Some things are quite clear. Bowing down is quite clear. It's a symbolic of surrender, humility. Touching the feet, symbolic of humility. Why going around is also celebrating, showing one's respect. It's an act of worship. Exactly the significance, I don't know. So, if Bimala Prasad, Prabhu can, is that you? Can give me email address. Please take it with your right hand, that's also important. Thank you. On the appearance days of Vishnu Tattva, like Lord Vaman, Varaha, Balaram Jayanti, it's not Balaram Jayanti. Should we take a oh, it's the same old question. Ekadashi Prasad or grain Prasad? Well, if you want to celebrate it in the best way, you can not take anything. Take the next day. Otherwise, you can follow the guidelines given by Srila Prabhupada for the specific days, which, where are those? That's in is it in the Vaishnav calendar? Sometimes we are glorified for the qualities which actually are not possessed by us. How to tackle such situations? Well, if someone glorifies us, there are different things we can do. We can glorify that person reciprocally, or we can say that, and we should feel like this, that if there is any quality in me, it's not because of me, it's because of any blessings I've received from Guru and Vaishnavas. Jogata bichare kichu nahi pai tomara karunasha. That we can say. We can say, no, I don't possess this quality, but even better may be to say that actually I possess no quality, but if you see any good thing, you should know that that is because of the blessings of Guru and Vaishnavas. Srila Prabhupada has recommended to put the photo of Jayananda Prabhu on. Oh, I was just thinking to say about Jayananda Prabhu. Alright, I'll say that. Because there's a nice book written about Jayananda Prabhu, and one devotee was Vishok Prabhu was explaining how when Jayananda Prabhu was just shortly before he passed away, Vishok, his godbrother, our godbrother, came and glorified Jayananda Prabhu. He went to him, saying to his face, and Jayananda didn't say anything. He didn't try to refute it or anything. He just accepted that. Maybe at the end of life we can do that. Srila Prabhupada has recommended to put the photo of Jayananda Prabhu on the chariot of Jagannath in Rath Yatra festivals. But this practice is not being generally followed, is it? Yes. Oh, well, most of the Rath Yatras I go to, I see. So, if it's not followed, then do something about it. Get the photo and stick it on there. Practical action. No one will protest. I hope. Now in Mayapur festival, one devotee is carrying Sri Ringontai deities and dancing and spinning around. Is this bona fide? Well, if you ask different people, you might get different answers. As you have asked me, I'll give the answer. No, it's not. again, if we're to say if something is bona fide or not, we have to say so with reference to Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. So our Guru didn't teach us to do this. I don't see any reference in Shastra, nor any previous acharyas, nor in all these years in which I've been observing Vaishnav culture, have I seen this done except by someone who wants to, someone here. So, is it bona fide? No. And someone will say, well, it's nice and they like it. But if they dance, that's up to them to dance. But we should, even when we're carrying deities, we should do so very carefully, not jerk them up and down. That's not for us to do. Does a devotee get a reaction of Vaishnav aparad for offending his Vaishnav wife? That means if the wife is a Vaishnav and the husband offends, is there a reaction? Well, in general, we can say yes, if there's an offense. But then on the other hand, generally a wife, the dealings between husband and wife, that it's such close and intimate dealings that it's something like that example is given of the baby passing stool on the mother. The mother doesn't take offense, because if anyone else did that, then it would be a great offense. But for the child, it's not considered. It's just part of normal life. So it may be that between husband and wife there is sometimes some dealings which are unpleasant. In some marriages, not in all marriages, some marriages, so I'm told, the dealings are more or less very smooth. One disciple of mine who's been married for about 8 years told me that in all that time there hadn't been any incident between him and his wife so disturbing to cause him to lose sleep at night. So there are such marriages, but it's quite common when two people are living very closely and intimately, whether they're husband and wife or whatever, that there's some kind of friction is generated quite often. But because the commitment to each other is so great that it's not taken very seriously. Prabhupada gave the example of Gandhi with his wife, that he one day threw her out on the street. Don't come back ever again. And of course she came back after a few minutes and then it was just forgotten. So these kind of things go on. Prabhupada often gave the example, similar examples. So one thing is, though, in the modern age, they're so foolish that they, instead of the norm, they just tolerate. I saw in a newspaper on the plane the other day that in Bangalore, it was the local Bangalore newspaper, the Women's Action Group or something like this. They're going out into the villages and training the women that how not to tolerate your husband and how to get a divorce. Are they also arranging for remarriage? Arranging for remarriage? I didn't read any further than that. It's just they want to follow everything in the West. Even they can see that the Western society is just an ocean of faults. The whole society is completely sick, but the intellectuals of India are just so-called intellectuals are just following that, and it's really blindly. Within India, it's not as pronounced as in ISKCON. Well, even in ISKCON, it's not that pronounced, but there is and there will be a continuing cultural divide between those who want to follow the old culture and those who want to follow the Western culture. In India, it's not so much pronounced, but you see, there are still many people who realize that this, at least to some extent, this Western, at least to some extent, they want the money and the nice house and this and that, but to some extent they want to retain their culture also. So far in India, the movies have all been, although they may be sexy, but they uphold family life also. That in the end, they all live happily ever after. But nowadays, so I understand, they've also started introducing all the degraded ideas from the West through the movies, and it's very influential. That culture which has been sustained for so many thousands of years, just in a few years, all being broken down. Horrible situation. What is the nectar of book distribution? Nectar, underlined. Well, ask that fellow over there. Stand up, please. You can ask him. See, he's got books in his hands ready to distribute. Go on the street, or not only on the street, there's plenty of places. Lots of nectar. What do you think? You want to get back to Slovenia? Get back to the book distribution? That is something which, again, it has to be experienced. You have to do it, then you know. Prabhupada gave that example. Actually, it comes from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. It may come from even before him. That the licking the honey pot you can do from the outside, but if you want to know what it tastes like, you have to open it and actually put the honey on your tongue. Oh, there's a bunch of letters. Can we pay obeisances to deities or circumambulate when the altar is closed? Well, the idea is that when the altar is closed, the Lord is either eating, being dressed or bathed, or sleeping. So, it's a private time, isn't it? So, obeisances are better offered when the Lord is giving darshan. It's just like the king, he gives his audience at there's a certain time and a place. Everyone should offer obeisances to the king, who's in the kingdom. But there's a certain time and place for doing that. It's not that you walk into his bathroom when he's taking bath and offer obeisances. That's not proper. So, better do it when the deities are open. Oh, I see. Srila Prabhupada used to say, follow the instructions of the spiritual master with heart and soul. What is the meaning of heart and soul? That means Atma Nivedanam. Not just as a formality, but with this intention. Guru Mokha Padda Vakya Chitete Koriya Aikya Arna Koriya Mane Asha. Not simply as a duty. How to increase the level of humility. Oh, it's how how can we question. There are many how can we questions. Generally, the process of Krishna consciousness in itself, by following, then all these come automatically. That one should, by following the process, we become more humble, we become more determined, we become more sincere. It's not that we have some kind of monitor, and there's the humility level, determination level, sincerity. One is very high and the other is very low, but rather they all go together. It's not that one can have one quality. The qualities in their pure form, they exist together. Of course, it may be that one is very determined to perform service, but apparently not very humble. That means that he hasn't. That's not determination in Krishna consciousness. Because that means that he has some determination, but with another motive. Otherwise, all the qualities should develop together. To increase our humility, well, at least theoretically, it shouldn't be very difficult to be humble if we just consider who we are. And then we have to consider, well, what are we not humble about? What are we proud about? Have we got anything to be proud about? If we actually consider our situation, how insignificant we are, then there should be no grounds for anything, for any pride. As I heard, one devotee said to Prabhupada, "Prabhupada, I am the most fallen." Prabhupada said, "You are not the most anything, you are simply insignificant." How can we live in the brahmachari ashram as a brahmachari, serving for one's full life? Well, you get up in the morning, go to the program, do your service during the day, and go on like that, and then the next day you do the same thing. And then by the end of your life, it's the whole life. But it may be better to think, instead of thinking how I can stay a brahmachari my whole life, it may be better if we think, how can I fully surrender to Krishna in this life? Because the aim is not to be a brahmachari. The aim is to be a devotee. I know of at least one case of a devotee who wanted to be a brahmachari throughout his whole life and felt so embarrassed at finding his own incapability in doing so that he left Krishna consciousness altogether. Because he didn't want to show others that he was not a brahmachari. So that's misplaced values, isn't it? So we should think how to serve Krishna. Pray for the mercy to serve Krishna in any capacity. What is your opinion? Oh, I'm careful. On asana and pranayama being part of a brahmachari program. Oh, what's this? Should I participate in an optional asana pranayama program that is part of an ashram I will stay in? Well, if it's optional, it's giving you the option, isn't it? And you can exercise that according to own intelligence. In general, it seems that Prabhupada wasn't very much in favor of this. He wasn't totally against it either. There's one incident described, I believe, in Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, maybe not in Lilamrita, where it was seen that devotees were walking with Prabhupada and they saw people performing asanas in the park, and Prabhupada was saying, actually this is very good for health, and it helps to make the mind steady. And then someone asked the inevitable question, I believe Satsru Maharaj used that term, well, can we also do it? And Prabhupada said, not necessary. But then one of his traveling assistants, Nanda Kumar, told that Prabhupada came upon him performing asanas once, or he asked Prabhupada if he could do it, and he said, well, whatever is necessary to perform our service better, you can do. So we have to see. I know at Govardhan, at the ashram that Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu is running for brahmacharis to study Sanskrit according to Bhakti Vedanta, they have every day for 15-20 minutes asanas, and the rest of the day they're sitting. So it may be a good idea in such a setting. Prabhupada generally recommended you chant and dance and do service, and other things are not necessary. But if you're sitting all day, then it may be good to do that, as long as it doesn't become excessive. Then you spend 2 hours every day. So it may be, we have to see the necessity and our own attitude and all these things. If we find ourselves getting too much into the bodily platform of life, it may not be a very good idea. But it might be a good idea if we find that our body is becoming sick and it requires some exercise. So again, it's something we can exercise our intelligence on whether to do or not. Again, it seems that Prabhupada in general, he didn't want to make this he didn't want to introduce this, although he wasn't wholly against it. If we perform kirtan with dancing twice a day, then that's exercise. We shouldn't think of it as exercise, that now I'm going to get some exercise. It comes automatically. So I'm not giving any clear answer to this. What to do in your own life, that you may have to decide. It's not that every detail of one's life has to be dictated to one. Srila Prabhupada said that we should follow authorities very strictly, but he also said that this Krishna conscious movement is meant for creating independently thoughtful persons. So how those two fit together, I gave a class about this actually, on this specific topic. So I think that might be available there somewhere, in these CDs which are available here. How to balance the two. But you see, where we shouldn't think that our guru or our spiritual authorities are like some kind of parents to babies. In the beginning, maybe you have to be shown how to put on a dhoti or a sari in the Western country. In India also now. These dhotis, young men don't know how to put on dhotis. By the way, someone was commenting to me yesterday that the Shastric style is to wear with trikach or panchkach, the dhoti. That means you tuck it up here. It's actually better because otherwise when you're walking your leg may be exposed. It's considered inauspicious any other way. And you may say, well, that's not the ISKCON style, but if you see there's some films from 1966 of the devotees wearing it in the actually quite complex style of tying. But it seems that afterwards Prabhupada just gave this very simple style because probably the devotees couldn't work out how to do it. But the actual Gauriya style, according as mentioned in Chaitanya Bhagavat, is actually mentions Panchakach. But Panchakach would, I guess, include the Kopin. But at least Trikach, that means you put it like this. I always used to wear like that when I wore a dhoti. Okay, then any other? No. We see most brahmacharis getting married. We see that most brahmacharis do get married. Some of them seem to get married, even though they are happy and unagitated as a brahmachari, and even they don't want children and are living simply, still they get married. Is this not worth the botheration? And should such a devotee be encouraged to avoid marriage? He is happy and peaceful. Exactly in an individual case, you can't say. Should an individual, if someone is happy as a brahmachari, should he get married or not? You have to see the individual case also. I mean, there are general indicators. It may be that he's apparently happy, but it's seen by others that he has some attachment, which it's difficult to say. It's difficult to give a specific answer to a general question. You have to see the individual case. In general, if someone's happy as a brahmachari, then why marry? But then if you're going to say marry and then you don't have children, then if you're going to get married, then why not have children? And why get married? So, the individual case has to be considered. What to do if the husband and wife have different gurus and the husband doesn't allow the wife to have contact with her own guru? That's an unusual situation. I never heard of that one before. Then better refer to the broader Vaishnava community. At least if there is a broader Vaishnava community which operates as a community. Here's another question similar to that. What if the husbands and wives gurus give different instructions on different details? Well, one lady disciple of mine asked this. I said, follow the husband. That's the general prescription. Details may be different, but to make family life peaceful, the general prescription is the wife should follow the husband. So, and even in their family life, take advice. Is this written in Russian? Is this in Russian? Is it? They have to get some translation. In Chaitanya Leela we find one associate of Mahaprabhu having Avesh of more than one personality. For example, Advaita Acharya is considered Sadashiva and Mahavishnu are non-different. Rai Ramananda, a combination of Vishaka and Arjuna. How to understand and explain it to others? How to explain it to others? Well, this is an internal matter. This is not for the public anyway. Rai Ramananda considered Avesh or is actually the personality. That means that he is, the 5 brothers who are the sons of Bhavananda Rai, who is considered to be Pandu, and his 5 sons are considered the 5 Pandavas. But then we see Rai Ramananda acting in his relationship with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Vishaka Sakhi, or sometimes as Lalita Sakhi. How to understand this? Well, obviously, it's not understandable by any material means, but it seems that one thing is that certain devotees, they give this Kavi Karnapur, in compiling his Gaur Ganodesh Deepika, says that certain personalities say this and others say that. So they observe the personality of one associate of Raja in an associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it may be that a devotee accepts the mood of more than one devotee to serve the Lord in more ways. All right, I'm going to finish there because... What time do you have? Oh, okay, I'll go on. See, many of these questions, they could be the subject of a very big discussion. But I'm just answering in brief. But Sadashiv is Vishnu, by the way. Shiva means auspicious. But Lord Shiva comes in contact with the material world, so he appears, although he's not, but he appears to be sometimes inauspicious. But Vishnu is always in a position of auspiciousness. Please don't put the book in your mouth or touch it to your mouth. But Sadashiv is Vishnu, and particularly that name is that from whom the personality Lord Shiva expands. As we know, preaching is our main business, especially youth preaching. Especially youth preaching, well, intrinsically there's no difference. The jiva in the body of a youth and the jiva in the body of a fly, all should be delivered. All should receive the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it's not that youth preaching is intrinsically more important than any other form of preaching. But as a strategy, we can say that if we preach to the educated youth, they, as Prabhupada suggested, then that may be as a strategy, because if they're educated youth, if they take it up, then because they have the material abilities to take up leadership. So for that reason it's important. Otherwise, preaching is to everyone. Patra bicha nahe sthana sthan jai jaha pai tare daya prem dan. The Pancha Tattva did not discriminate who is a worthy candidate and who is not, or which is a proper place or which is not. But wherever they got the opportunity, they distributed love of Krishna. When we try to preach, it is a difficult task because in youth the senses are very difficult to control. Then why do we not open child school gurukuls and we can bring the orphan child and train them? We should stop all youth preaching and open orphanages. We can do both things. No need to stop youth preaching. If you're finding it difficult to preach to youth, then you want to open an orphanage and you're qualified to do so, you have the blessings of the Vaishnavas, then you may do so. Or you may assist someone who is doing so. There's no reason to stop youth preaching. We have seen that Sikh Dharma, established after donating big I can't read this. Sikh child, after donating big child means, the eldest son is given in, for what? They used to give in the army or what? That's the system. Why don't ISKCON Grihastas do like that? Give birth to 10 children and send them to Krishna Seva. Well, ask the Grihastas. Gopinatha Acharya Das, you are a new Grihasta. Keshav Murari Das says that you have to have 10 children and send 9 for Krishna Seva. So if you like, you can take his advice.
I take one child.
No, 10.
Have 10 child. They want to give birth.
No, he's saying you should have. Another new grihastha. Nowadays it's very difficult because it's so expensive. Previously children were an economic asset. Now they're an economic liability, so they don't want to have children. Well, I can say to Keshav Murari, it's a great idea and you can be the acharya of this principle. So you can show how it's done. Give birth to 10 children and send 9 in Krishna Seva. Why 9? All of them. Krishna Seva means all can be trained to be devotees. Or even like Bhaktivinoda Thakur with 13 children, one of his children was such a devotee. Out of his children, 2 took to Krishna consciousness very seriously throughout their whole lives. So if you like to have many children, it's also good. You can increase the number of Vaishnavas. That's one way of doing it. Alright, I'm going to finish here, and who gave this question can kindly take it back and give it tomorrow, and we'll just